Hello, everybody. My name is Arlysse Quiring. I work at Archer Library, and I work in user services and reference, as well as library instruction. And I work with colleagues like Isaac here in presentations like this, What is OER session for the bootcamp. So we'll just get started here. I'm just going to go over a brief presentation showing a little bit about what exactly is OER, and then we'll go to a few resources. I'll cover a little bit of information on the practice sheet if you wanted to go through that, as well as a handout that just goes over some resources as well. So very informal session here. We're just going over basics about what exactly is OER. So, open educational resources. What exactly are they? Now, this is a quote from my colleague Kara Bradley in her OER Lit Guide, which she also borrowed from hewlett.org. So, open educational resources, or OER, have been defined by the Hewlett Foundation as teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use and repurposing by others. Open educational resources include full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, streaming videos, tests, software, and any other tools, materials, or techniques used to support access to knowledge. Okay, so it covers a great deal. In the case of myself working with Pressbooks, we're usually talking about textbooks that we're creating on campus, but there are so many other different kinds of OER. It's a very general term, and I would say that it's one of those things that continues to grow as the community gets bigger, as the demand gets bigger, all of that kind of thing. So who are they for? Who is OER for? Realistically, it's for everybody. It's for students, faculty and sessionals, staff document sharing. It can be, it doesn't have to be formal. It can be a number of different resources and used in different ways. Open access is a fairly general term again, but open educational resources is sort of the sky's the limit. There's a lot of different opportunities there, and it doesn't just have to be for students or just for faculty. It can be used for a multitude of platforms and audiences. And so how are they created? Then we're talking about platforms like Pressbooks, which in the second session that I'll be doing with the OER bootcamp here, pardon me. For the bootcamp, we'll be talking about how to create books through Pressbooks, but you can use LibreText, you can use the H5P platform. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can create this. So again, this is very general, but just going over some basics here. So the 5R framework, which Isaac can speak a little bit more on if you're interested in contacting him and talking to him about this, is just a very basic, sort of outline of what we're looking at in OER. So number one here, we're reusing. Content can be reused in its unaltered form, pardon me. Revise, content can be adapted, adjusted, modified, or altered. Remix, the original or revised content can be combined with other content to create something new. Redistribute, copies of the content can be shared with others in its original, revised, or remixed form. And finally, retain. Users have the right to remain, archive, and own copies of the content. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about this community of OER, where it's sort of like not reinventing the wheel. We're sharing content, we're adapting content, we are creating a community of not necessarily free learning, we'll talk about that later, but a community of shared learning and shared resources, okay? So I believe my colleague, Christina Winter, spoke on licenses during this boot camp, but here is a chart that will be in your handout as well about open licenses and permission. So you can absolutely go ahead there, take a look at, as you're looking through different OER sources, see what's already there, become familiar with these different licenses. You can contact Christina or Isaac if you have any particular questions, as they are our experts. And realistically, there's a lot of different options here, and there's usually something that will work for your purposes. We just want to be aware of all of these different options. So where can I find OER? There are a lot of options through the U of R, but just generally on the internet and generally throughout the world, there's just, like I say, it's this real community that's being built. And there's a number of different resources. I will show you a few of them here today. But let's take a look here at a few of the different options and resources. So first and foremost, I would say if you're looking for an OER textbook, we have the University of Regina OER by subject directory. If you've attended one of our earlier sessions about this directory, it's basically Isaac had found similar directories on other campuses. He cloned one of those. We started adding to it, myself in the library, him in the OER program. And we started adding all the textbooks that we found that were suitable for specific subjects at the U of R. It's important to note that they are not approved by specific faculties. It's more that they're ideas for those faculties, and a professor or sessional chooses to use that text, that's great. An instructor for any class realistically can use these, but it's just a starting point to get your ideas going. A lot of them can be cloned through Pressbooks, though not if it's not originally on that platform, but it's just a real index of what's out there and what might be useful for U of R instructors of all levels. So in just a little bit further down there, we've got the library research guides listed. So this is sort of more general information about open access, OER, and then open textbook specifically. These are all from my colleague, Kara Bradley again. But you can also access the subject directory guide through there as well. She has a link. Otherwise, you can go to the U of R OER homepage. But these are general information, copyright information, sort of a starting point, but more of a basic information, whereas the directory is specific textbooks already found for you. And then we also have the, I like to recommend the Pressbooks directory itself, which it's useful because we subscribe to the EDU or EDU version of Pressbooks at the U of R, and that means that you can clone any of these books, and this could save you a lot of work down the road. So it's good to know that that's there, so that if you're looking, for example, say a nursing textbook, and you take a look in the Pressbooks directory or our OER directory there, and you see that there's something already made in Pressbooks, then you can just clone it and adapt it. Kind of easy peasy in a lot of ways. So it's again a place to start, but it's really good for brainstorming as well. So there are a few other resources here that they are listed in your handout as well, but just a couple of notes on these. So Pressbooks itself, if you didn't want to clone, if you didn't want to look at an already created textbook, you can start from scratch on Pressbooks. It's basically for creating, right? Like it's not just for duplicating or cloning, but you can create literally anything on there. It's basically a website for content. Like you're making a web address for a book, basically is what you're doing. And whether you're writing on Word ahead of time and copying and pasting, you're adapting something for a class as you go. Again, it's just a very practical program. I'd say it's very similar to Word in its usability. So if you're comfortable with Word, you'll be comfortable with Pressbooks kind of thing. But it's, it takes a little bit of trial and error to get used to, but it's sort of a very creative platform, I would say. LibreText is very similar. It's just a different platform. It does very similar things. For a number of reasons, it seems that a lot of STEM-oriented textbooks come on LibreText. Perhaps it might be easier to enter certain, equations or something like that. I think that I found that Pressbooks has been pretty good for that kind of thing, but different people might like to try something else. Like it's just different options, and they have different forums and things like that. So it's really take a look around, see what you're comfortable with. Again, the advantage of Pressbooks for the U of R is that we do have that edu version with cloning. LibreText does this in different ways, but it's good to know what's out there. Yeah. And then there's an actual OER Commons, which is again on your handout, but it's, it's just like all of these other pages here in the sense that it's sort of a landing page for ideas. It is a sharing network of sorts. Now, H5P, I believe there will also be another session within this book on H5P. That was one of the sessions for the boot camp. So I won't talk too much on that, but when we're talking about H5P, we're talking about sort of interactive components that you can add to your textbooks. So we're looking at like word searches or equations where you can actually answer right in the book, or that kind of thing, or you know, memory cards, things like that. So things that you would normally, that we're sort of used to having in person, that now you can have right in the textbook. And this is a real advantage to having both an online textbook and an open educational resource textbook, because it can be adapted to your class, other people can share it, and it's a real advantage for this online world that we're both living in and moving forward through, in that it makes a difference to students if they can do practical things within their textbooks. And whereas, you know, in the previous days when we would just have, you know, answer keys for the end of the book or that kind of thing, it's just a different experience. And younger and younger students are growing up in a world that is online, and we have to respect that. We want to adapt the way we're teaching to how they're learning, and vice versa. Like, we can continue to grow together. And if this is an opportunity to reach out to those students, I think it's a really good thing. So then we also have the eCampus Ontario H5P Studio. So these are a whole bunch of pre-created H5P elements that people have shared, and you can borrow, you can take a look at them for ideas, all that kind of thing. Even H5P itself, on their website, they have a bit of a commons there as well. So it's, you know, like I say, I know I keep saying this, but it's really a growing community for OER, and there's just so much out there that's happening. It's really worth taking a look at. And there are a few more on the handout that you're welcome to look at. You can email Isaac or myself if you have any questions at all. So just a quick note here on cost, because effectively, one of the big selling points for OER is that it's effectively free for the student, but it really is not free. And you just need to bear that in mind for your workload, for your university's resources or your institution's resources. Effectively, nothing is free, right? If it's free for the student, there's probably a lot of work happening behind the scenes with staff like myself, with professors and sessionals, whoever it is. It might cost time if it doesn't cost the students money. It might cost the university resources indirectly through, you know, funding for grants and things like that to make these textbooks. It's just choosing to redistribute those funds and that time into a way that might be more adaptable to students, more accessible to students, all kinds of things there. But it's worth bearing in mind that, you know, there's a lot of conversations about school being free, about textbooks being free, all these kind of sort of dreams that we might talk about further, not in this session, but you know, it's this OER platforms, we're headed in a really good direction here for accessibility and affordability, but just remember that, you know, it's still your time, it's still your institution's money, and it's sort of weighing the benefits for OER versus the limitations, who's going to benefit, why they're going to benefit. And in a lot of cases, it's very much worth it, but it's just something you need to decide for yourself, your faculty, your institution, etc. All right. So in this recording, we don't really have a space for questions, but if you do, please do contact myself or Isaac. My contact information is in the handout there. And we're going to exit this particular screen and take a quick peek at the other resources we have on hand for you. So I'm going to stop this share. Okay. And now I'll just take a look at, well, first we'll do the handout. So the handout here, you can see this is just basics. We've got the directories, we've got the library guides, we've got the platforms or repositories, pardon me, other OER tools and contact information. So these are the absolute basics, but they really get you started. And notable down here in Isaac's contact information is the opentextbooks.uregina.ca. You can find the directory there as well. And of course, on my handout here with my contact information, I noticed there is a typo, perhaps not ironically. you can go to the library website as well, and much of this is listed there as well. So this is just a basic handout, okay? And as well, before we go to the websites, I'll also show you the scavenger hunt really quickly. You're certainly not obligated to do the scavenger hunt. It's just practice for yourself. It's sort of taking what we learned in the presentation today and through all the handouts and websites and working on it, seeing what you can find, seeing what you can discover out in the world of OER, right? So this is basic steps going through finding the OER directory, finding different textbooks in there, seeing what might be useful for you, and similarly doing something similar to the library resources. And then beyond the resources here is just sort of a general Google. So again, this is just a really basic worksheet. If you're interested, you're more than welcome to do that. So, and lastly, then I'm going to go to a few different websites here just to walk you through what's happening. And we'll go share, and there we go. So starting at the U of Regina OER by subject directory here. So this is once you get to that open textbook page, and then you go to the subject directory further down. Let's take a step back here, see if I can, sometimes this works for me when I'm not on campus. Sometimes it does. We'll take a peek. Perfect. It worked for me. So we'll scroll down here. This is the landing page. We scroll down, go to the University of Regina, OER by subject directory. It's been a long day. So we can scroll down here. You can see, again, we do have other sessions for this document specifically. You're welcome to join us for that. But just the basics here. We've got everything organized by general information section at the top, and then all of the textbooks are listed by faculties that are at the U of R, and then subjects that are not necessarily available at the U of R, but most of them are. And they're just, not everything is applicable to your particular class or your particular subject, but it's good to know it's here. It's good to look through. For example, we go to psychology. There's going to be a bunch of different options here for different classes, right? They're not all Psych 100 or whatever you happen to be looking at. But most of these should be, we just click on the title, and it should, in theory, take us to the textbook. Perfect there. This is through OpenStax, and it's all just right here. So you can just look through the book. It's absolutely there right away. So, or if we're looking at, let's find one that isn't OpenStax. Let's see here. Think Baez. There we go. Another resource right away. So all of these links should work. Let us know if you find one that isn't working, of course. If I go back again, though, I'll scroll down to the bottom. If you prefer to not look through by subject, you can go down to the index here. And this is everything in the resource listed alphabetically. So this is literally, if you wanted to go down to biology, right? Here is a biology textbook. So this is BC Campus, again through OpenStax, but it's a BC Campus textbook. Okay, so those links again do lead you to a textbook. And then we've got the repositories here. So things like LibreText, for example, you can find all in here. So you're very welcome to take a peek around the OER directory for the U of R. And if you have suggestions to add to this directory, please do contact us as well. We're constantly adding to it. Now, this is the Pressbooks directory. It's very similar, except these books are only through Pressbooks, which means that you can clone them through Pressbooks Edu, which is the one that, again, the U of R subscribes to. So again, you can take a look at any of these books. You can look by subject. You can look by, just glancing through. They've got, popular textbooks and things like that listed. And they're often very, very flashy looking here. They look wonderful, but just take a look through, see what's possible. They have really good examples of different things you can do in Pressbooks and just OER in general, but they are only Pressbooks. Just keep that in mind. They do not have other platforms on here. Now, these are the library guides. I'm just going to quickly go back to show you how to find these after I show the content here. So this is the open access library guide. And this is, again, I believe Kara is updating them fairly regularly. So this is sort of a general starting point for open access. She's got definitions. She's got a few resources, really great starting point. Here's open educational resources, specifically different than open access, right? She does have some of these connected, but it's sort of different angles and different perspectives on similar things. So if you have any questions about the differences between these definitions and whatnot, you're absolutely welcome to. But she has information on evaluating OER and whatnot here as well, right? So this is sort of one step further, as it were. And then open textbooks, very specifically just textbooks. We're not talking about other resources here, but so good page, all the same. We've got the three. So again, open textbooks, OER, and then open access. Okay, so now to get to these pages, if you're not familiar with the library website, now the library website notably is also going to be updated, I believe, over the summer. So it may look a little bit different by the time you're there and taking a look through everything. But in general, you want to get to research guides over here in this tab. Again, this might look a little bit differently, but research guides is where you're going to start, or it might say library guides later. I'm not sure how they're going to change it, but we're looking for the word guide. So I'm going to go view all guides. I actually personally like to go to all guides. Sometimes the searches are better than other days, but you can see everything we have here. There might be something else you're interested in while you're here, like the Archer Book Club, also something I participate in. Lots of different things here that can be really useful that you may not have been aware that we have, like fake news, for example. We have a library leisure guide, but we're going to scroll down to, and just while we're passing through, this is something you can forward to your students, put on maybe your syllabus, something like that. How do I read call numbers? How do I evaluate resources? These are really directed at students, but they're very useful guides. Finally, we go all the way down to the O's here. We've got open access, open educational resources, open textbooks, and it just takes you right back to where we started. Okay, so I think that that is everything I wanted to share with you today. Let me just double check. So the presentation, the two handouts, and the websites themselves. Yes, so that's everything. I won't share another screen here. If you do, I know I keep saying it, but if you do have any questions, please reach out to myself or to Isaac. We're more than happy to help you with any questions you may have about OER in general. We do run a number of sessions over the semesters on the OER directory, on how to build books through Pressbooks, and copyright, a number of different sessions from our colleagues as well. So please do reach out. Hopefully you were able to attend a few of the sessions in the boot camp, and we look forward to hearing from you and working with you. So thank you very much for your time, and let's talk soon. We'll get you connected with all these wonderful resources. Take care. Bye.